Welcome to the HMO Property Show, by investors for investors. Catch us weekly as we discuss all things cash flow positive property investing. Whether you're a seasoned investor, a new landlord, or just curious about property investing, this is the podcast for you. Sponsored by the Co-Living Collective, your trusted partner in creating vibrant and sustainable shared living experiences. Visit us at colivingcollective.com.au to learn more.
Welcome back to the HMO Property Show and welcome to 2026. I'm Neil Gibb, the host of the show as always, and hopefully you are ready for 2026. Hopefully you've got your goals set, hopefully you're feeling refreshed and recharged after a break over the festive period, and hopefully this is going to be your year that is going to be your fittest, your healthiest, your wealthiest, your sexiest, however you want to feel it. Whatever your goals are, I hope that you reach them in 2026, and I hope that this podcast can help you, inspire you, motivate you, entertain you and educate you so that you can help yourself hit them targets, hit them goals. Because today I want to talk about what's called lifestyle creep and the high income wealth trap. And before I get into that, I'm actually going to tell you a little bit about the Perth market. I still believe that Perth is going to be the best market again this year across the country. Double-digit growth yet again. Remember, I think it was about 18 months ago I did a podcast because everyone was saying the Perth market was cooked. And I came on this podcast boldly and said this market is still going to grow, and everybody that's left early, they're all just sat in Melbourne doing nothing because the Melbourne market's hardly moving. Certain suburbs are, but nowhere near as much as what Perth has done since that time period. And I still believe Perth will outstrip Melbourne again in 2026, because what's happening right now in the Perth property market is the data that we're seeing doesn't just tell a story about prices, it tells a story about people's choices and how those choices can lead right into what's called the high income wealth trap. And a lot of investors have left Western Australia and gone to different states because they believe that the market's done its thing and how could it keep going up in price. But when you look at the volume of properties on the market, the number of properties on the market, I think over Christmas in December, we dropped down to like 1,800 properties available for sale. And we were still selling like 600-700 properties a week. So that's like 50% of the market was selling on a weekly basis. And it physically can't get any lower. That would be the net zero, right? Because if you think about properties have got to come on and go off constantly. So you're never going to get down to zero properties for sale. You know, REIWA say that a balanced market is 12 to 13,000 properties. But let's think about this realistically. They were saying that when there was 2 million people living here. Now there's 3 million people living here. So I believe that the balanced market will be like 15 to 17,000 properties. So we are miles away from being an even balanced market. And we've still got people moving en masse to this beautiful state. And we've still got record jobs, people are getting jobs, people have got money, people want to spend, we've still got the highest wages in the country, we've still got, I'd not say we're probably not as affordable as Adelaide, and maybe we've outstripped Darwin now as well, but we're probably catching up with Melbourne or maybe overtook Melbourne, because right now the REIWA is saying that the median house price is sitting around $845,000 right now. Listings are super tight. Hovering between 1,800 was the lowest, and I think this week we're back up around like 2,200, something like that. And we'd expect that to happen this time of year, right? A lot of people will wait over that Christmas period because people, after the Melbourne Cup, Australia literally slows down, doesn't it, if you think about it? Melbourne Cup happens, people start planning holidays, buying for Christmas, pulling back on expenses. And a lot of real estate agents will say to people, look, you don't want to put your house in the market too early because it could potentially sit there stagnant for 2 or 3 weeks when there's not many buyers in the market. So we would recommend putting it on there for the 3rd week in January. And I've followed that advice from real estate agents too in the past and made some pretty good money because the market's hot, people come back, they've got goals, they're relaxed and recharged and they're ready to buy. So we've made some good money by doing that, and we'd expect more properties to come on the market this week. In fact, I'm very interested to see what the REIWA stats are released at the end of this week to see how many properties actually did come on the market. Now, if you've been following the market, you obviously know that prices have climbed steadily over the last few years. And Now, more and more people are saying that Perth's going to be the best performer in the country again. Nothing's changed from my view. I said we had 3 to 5 years 18 months ago. So now I still think we've got 3 to 4 years left of this gangbuster market. Units and house prices are both rising. Unit values are going up now because people are getting priced out of houses. They're now turning to apartments and units as an affordable way of getting into the market. Rents are holding firm too. Vacancy rates still below what a balanced market looks like, which is a balanced market is 3%. I think we're hovering around 1%. So in short, if you're seeing supply stay low, demand is staying strong and prices will continue to increase. But what causes the reason for this? What causes prices to go up in value? What causes people to continue to buy even though everybody's saying the market's too hot and it can't potentially go up anymore, but we still got people out there buying, right? And if you think about it, markets are driven by two very strong emotions and greed. And when people are fearful, they'll pull back, they'll sit on the fence, they won't move, as we've seen, and generally during election times and stuff like that. When there's a little bit of uncertainty in the market, interest rates are going up, we've seen a little bit of apprehension in the market, a little bit of fear. But then when the markets do change and we're in the sort of buying phase that we're in now, everybody's emotions are well and truly in greed, or FOMO as they call it, the fear of missing out. And what we're seeing now, because a lot of investors have left the state, we're seeing a lot of activity from Perth-based buyers, Perth-based principal place of resident occupiers, and also Perth-based investors. And it pains me to say it, but for a long time we were working with a lot of interstate investors and not many Perth investors, and now we're getting lots and lots of Perth investors signing up to work with us. It's not that they've missed the opportunity, but they've missed out on some of the opportunity, because if they took action 2 years ago instead of now, they'd be sitting on 2 years worth of equity, which could be your property doubling in value. So these owner-occupiers are thinking, now it's time to upgrade the house. We know we're sat in a lot of equity. Our property's gone up in value. Why don't we use the equity and move into a nicer suburb? Some of them are like, well, why don't we just redraw on some of this equity and buy a new car? Because if we pull, 100 grand out of our mortgage, then that 100 grand's only going to be like $600-700 a month. Where if we got a car loan, it would be $4,000-5,000 a month, maybe $3,000 a month. The equity's there. Why don't we use it? We've built this wealth. And the problem is, as that happens, that's what's called lifestyle creep. People earn more, prices increase, and they spend more. You get a bigger house, which comes with a bigger mortgage. You get a new car. Some people like the holiday home. And at the time it feels good. You've got all this extra disposable income, but you're just putting it into things that, aren't really building you any wealth. But it feels good because you've got no money. So your wealth isn't growing, but your cost base does. And let me explain why this matters, because when prices rise, people feel wealthier. They justify upgrading spending. You got to think about it. People make decisions emotionally, but justify with logic. So emotionally, they'll want to upgrade it in that new house. It's going to feel so much better when we live there. Life will be so much better when we live in that nice house. And don't get me wrong, guys, I'm the same. I live in a nice house, and I wanted to live in that nice house as well, so I upgraded. And then you justify it with logic. Well, it's only X, Y, and Z. It's only this, it's only that. And this is when people use equity for lifestyle choices. Maybe it's even a jet ski or something like that. I'm actually considering buying a jet ski for me and Freddie at the minute, so that me and Freddie G can go for little mooches on the Swan River. But yeah, the people, they're pulling equity for lifestyle choices instead of pulling equity for assets. And they're treating capital gains and equity releases like cash in the pocket. And that's where we see the bridge into what we call the high income wealth trap. So the trap is your income is high, your costs go up, your spending matches your capacity, and you never ever lock in any assets that pay you. You just focus on what you can afford now, what is going to sustain you and your lifestyle later. So you might be thinking, I'll buy the new car, we'll renovate the house, we'll extend the house, in fact, we'll put a pool in, we'll buy a nice shed. All of these things that you don't have the cash in your pocket to do yourself, so you'll pull it out of the equity of your property. This isn't income-driven spending, and it's not asset-led building either. You're not building an asset base of properties that you can then, that will go up in value. You're essentially using that equity to buy liabilities. things that will go down in value. And at some stage, that equity that you've drawn out, that liability will have lost so much value that it'll be worth nothing, but you'll have had a little bit of fun, right? But myself and Joe lived by this phrase for maybe 4 years, and it might not sound like a long time, but 4 years when you're doing this, before myself and Joe got into investing, like, we used to spend everything we earned. We had, again, a good life. We had lifestyle creep. We lived in a nice apartment. We had a nice car. We used to go on 2 or 3 holidays a year, but we never really had a substantial amount of money in the bank because we used to spend it all on all of these things. And that's where the core mistake is. What we used to say to ourselves when we first got into investing is live a few years like most people won't, so that we can live the rest of our lives like most people can't. And going from that kind of flamboyant lifestyle of having cash in your pocket and spending it, enjoying yourselves and doing what we were doing, to all of a sudden becoming super, super frugal. Like, we put plans in place for X amount of money going into savings accounts, X amount of money going into this. We were hustling like crazy. Like, we were turning down weekends away with our friends down Margaret River to stay and do renovations on properties, or even if we didn't have any deals on, we'd turn them weekends down just so we could stay and save money. Because the trap for the lifestyle creep people is they measure success by lifestyle, and I've been there and I've done that. Now I measure success by the income that lands when I don't have to do anything, by the asset base that I've built. And people think that your wealth is measured by how much cash you've got in the bank, but your wealth is actually measured by your holdings. And if you've got $10 million worth of real estate and only $5 million worth of debt, then you've essentially got $5 million worth of equity there. So you're worth $5 million. And this is where a lot of people stop and think that's a good thing, but you need to make sure that that $5 million of equity is producing an income for you. And if that $5 million worth of equity is producing you a 5% return, then you're getting $250,000 a year of net cash flow. Let's break it down, right? You earn good money, you see property prices increase, and obviously with inflation, we've just had, record amount of capital pumped back into the market by the banks, by the RBA. So lending becomes easy, so it's easy to draw out that equity. That means your spending increases, but because your spending increases, you've taken on more debt, and because you've taken on more debt, when the interest rates start to go back up like they did, then your day-to-day costs go back up, and it can feel like progress because you're upgrading your lifestyle, but actually it's not. Because real wealth is income that comes in without you showing up, whether that is a property portfolio, whether that's a business, whether that's a share portfolio that's spitting out dividends. This is income that isn't tied to how hard you work, how long you work, and it's not tied to lifestyle decisions. Real wealth is assets that pay you whilst you sleep, whilst you're with your family, whilst you're sick, and whilst you're on holiday. And that's a shift high income earners make or never make early enough. The lifestyle increases, that lifestyle wealth, lifestyle creep happens into the next bracket, and they never really get ahead. So over the break, I took my family to Sydney, and whilst we were over there, portfolio is going up in value, cash flow is still coming in, business is still going, like all of these different ways that money is coming in to my bank account without me withdrawing on any equity, without me doing anything specific. I've just set up the asset base, so now it's generating, it's a money-making machine. And this is the position that I want you guys to be in, and I want you guys to be taking them steps towards that position in 2026. Because when the market's rising, it makes it really easy to ignore, because you just think it's going to continuously go up. You think prices are up, we're wealthy now, we can upgrade, we can do that reno, we can get the jet ski, whatever it is. But wealth isn't about what you spend, it's what keeps paying you regardless of the input. And this is where the mindset flip needs to go. It needs to go from how do I earn more to what am I turning my income into? Because income doesn't compound, assets do. Think about it, you can only exchange your time for so much money yourself, right? You need leverage, whether that's leverage in a property portfolio, whether that's leverage in a share portfolio, whether that's leverage over other people's time when you've got a business and you've got employees that are working for you to generate income from the business. You can't do that when you work for somebody else. You can't do that when you've got a job. You can only exchange your time for money. And what you want to do is put that money into assets so that your money works hard for you, so you don't have to keep working hard for your money. So ask yourself this one question, or these 4 questions in fact. If your income stops tomorrow, where does your money come from? Now, if you've got a negatively geared portfolio, this is a very important question for you. If you lost your job tomorrow, where does your income come from? It's a powerful question to be asking yourself on the first few weeks in January. And then ask yourself, are you rich because of your income, or are you rich because of your asset base? Now, you might be earning $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year. If you are, fantastic. I'm very pleased for you. But please make sure that you're using this money wisely. And then ask yourself, is your lifestyle built on certainty or assumption? Are you assuming that the market's going to continue to go up so you can use equity to buy things? Are you assuming that you're going to have your job forever and the company that you work for is never going to go through hard times? Or is it built on the fact that you're going to buy an asset and over the next 10, 15 years' time it's probably going to double in value? And if you use that cash flow to pay down the debt, then you're going to have a debt-free asset in 12 to 15 years' time. And that's just very simple maths, which we can show you inside our Financial Freedom Blueprint. And then ask yourself this last question: which currency do you need more of right now? Do you need more time? Do you need more knowledge? Or do you need more money? They're the 3 real currencies that we all have: time, knowledge, or money. If you need more time, then you can buy more time with money. If you need more knowledge, not more knowledge, then you can buy knowledge with money and spend time learning about it. Either you can join someone's course, whatever. But if you need more money, then you're going to have to use your time and your knowledge to generate more income, more money. So what do you need more of right now? Time, knowledge, or money? Because your answer tells you what to invest in next. And we can't really ignore the fact that the Perth market is strong. But don't let these strong prices justify lifestyle choices that eat your future. Please use this time to build wealth for yourself, for your family, maybe for generations, who knows. Use the market as a launch pad for real wealth, not as a permission to expand your cost base, to buy these bells and whistles, buying things to impress people that you don't even like. I've heard that one before. And that was me back in the day. Now I buy things because I like them. But it was a bit of a keeping up with the Joneses at some stage in my life. So use the market as a launch pad for real wealth, not as permission to expand your cost base, because that's where the real trap lives. Wealth isn't in what you earn, it's in what you build. Real wealth is measured in your assets. And when your assets start paying without you, that is how we create true financial freedom. Now, I hope you have an amazing 2026. I wish you guys all the best. And we've got some really, really cool things happening behind the scenes here at the HMO Property Co. and the HMO Property Show as well. So see you next week. And remember, every master was once a disaster. Every winner was once a beginner.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you tune in the same time next week so you can stay up to date with all cash flow positive property updates.